John, you are truly extraordinary. Even as a cripple, you are able to push through others' prejudice and stand up for yourself. Even though you're at the bottom, you can break molds. You are an inspiration. Thank you. You showed me that even the weakest person has something valuable to offer, that no one's worthless. These are the words that ring through the mind of one of the characters of unOrdinary as they arrive at a turning point in their life. Inspired by the persistence and relentless determination of the protagonist John, in spite of his handicaps, this unnamed character decides to take their life into their own hands and live it how they want to by any means necessary. What's cracking, guys? Samuel607 here, throwing at you installment 1 of Webtoon Week. Today we look at Uru-chan's unOrdinary. The premise of unOrdinary is a simple one. We have a world where everyone possesses a unique innate ability, not unlike the quirks of My Hero Academia or other such stories. What makes these somewhat special in this case, however, is that there's a ranking system for these abilities. They can be directly measured and given a numerical value that represents how good they are. If you either are a quick thinker or have read the story before, this should immediately raise a red flag for you. As one would expect, having a system in which you can definitively rank people using aspects of themselves they have next to no control over is as good a way as any to introduce insuperable classism. And sure enough, it does. In the world of unOrdinary, a person's ability level determines what tier they're placed in. People usually end up being closest to those who share their tier and look down upon those below them who are effectively powerless in comparison. As a result, the low tiers end up as the lowest social class. Unable to defend themselves, they live in fear and must accept that they will neither be cared for nor respected. Now, imagine the persecution they face, and take it a step further. Think about the kind of existence even they look down on. The people truly at the bottom of the food chain. The cripples. Our subject of the day is one such man, John. Ability level 1, normal human being. The only thing special about him is that he isn't. And that makes him the perfect example of the powerless protagonist so few writers are able to get right, and I'll have to insult 2 types of stories to explain exactly what I mean. First, we have the not-so-powerless protagonists. These are the ones we're supposed to believe have been cursed by fate and aren't destined for anything, only for them to end up being blessed by the plot in the first episode and live out the rest of their lives like the traditional chosen one protagonists would have anyway. We just get 6 to 18 minutes of them being sad first. Notable offenders within this category include My Hero Academia and Black Clover. Mashal too if you want to get something more recent on the list. I consider these stories to fail at what they set out to do because the period leading up to the MC's ascent to brokenhood is short and oftentimes of little relevance to the actual story. If that part was inserted into the middle of the story as a flashback or altogether removed, how much of a difference would that really make? You might argue that it in some way changes the mindset of the character, but it only makes Deku doubt himself more, Asta even more obnoxious, and Mashal able to eat more cream puffs. Worse yet, all of these characters tend to have such lofty goals that there are no feasible ways to accomplish them outside of some form of power boost plot device. All that being said, this is still the better of the 2 flawed story types because outside of my nitpicking over the character origin stories, we end up with the same brand of product as Naruto, One Piece, or Bleach. The second flawed story type is one that is much, much worse. The Pathetic Protagonist. These are the ones we just straight up don't like. Can't do anything right, never contribute, never take steps toward one day becoming great, and waste screen time in their own stories. Characters like Takemichi from Tokyo Revengers fall into this category. Although they aren't pointless false advertising like the previous category, and may even technically have special abilities, as in this case, they take the leap from powerless to worthless. Outside of the bare minimum the plot requires of them to progress, they give you absolutely nothing and leave the resolution of problems to the other, more capable characters. The problem I have with every story like this is that they have unlikable leads no one wants to root for, and this detracts from your enjoyment of the series as a whole. Because I doubt anyone disagrees with me here, I won't try nearly as hard as I did with the former case to be convincing, and we will instead move right along to what unOrdinary does right. John. Like the others, he starts off from a position of disadvantage. Only he stays there. We witness him struggle, falter, have doubts, iron out his will, and repeat the cycle as he works towards his simple goal of living an ordinary life. The problem is, however, that because he is ordinary, he is unordinary. Okay, so we've set this apart from the stories in the first bracket, but what of the ones in the second? Doesn't this just lump him in with the other useless bags of flesh? No. Just because he doesn't use any powers, it doesn't mean he can't do anything. He's well aware of how their classist society operates, and he knows that if he lets people think they can have their way with him, they will. So he doesn't let that happen. He's quick-witted and well-trained enough at fighting that he can usually defend himself and sometimes win a fight. This is only the case against low tiers and the occasional mid-tier, though. He is by no means fearsome, and any ability user who's even somewhat capable will defeat him. But he's worked hard enough that he can almost pass for average. And considering that his goal is an ordinary life, that's respectable. He's earnest in everything he does and is always sure to try his best in all facets of life. Win or lose, whenever he takes on a challenger, he'll likely get beaten half to death and have to nurse several broken bones. But he doesn't cower away because of this. He lives a life that he can be proud of, and this is, in no small part, thanks to his prized possession, unOrdinary. This is his support mechanism. Something that I quite like was introduced. It is a now outlawed book that his father wrote and dedicated to him. The story follows a high tier in a world where everyone else is a cripple. Despite essentially being a god among men, he is neither proud nor arrogant. He listens when spoken to, tries to understand people, and seeks out advice. The moral lesson it teaches is that everyone, no matter how mighty or feeble, has something valuable to offer. This book maintains John's sanity through all the punishment he endures. Whenever it is away from him, you can tell that his mental state degrades and he slips from the righteous path he set out to walk. This is something I appreciate because it shows the writer's understanding that John's life isn't easy. Without coping mechanisms, he'd be sure to fall apart, especially considering, unlike some wielders of the power of friendship, John doesn't have an army of nakama he can call to his aid whenever he's in trouble. This contributes a lot to upping the tally of his not-so-mental health-friendly visits to the doctor. He has only one friend, Serafina. I'll concede that she is strong enough that she acts as a deterrent against attacking him whenever they are together, but she by no means makes him immune to harm. Whatever trouble he gets into when she isn't around is his own problem. He knows that, and he lives with it. There are consequences to his actions, and he doesn't have a safety net to fall back on if things go wrong. He simply has to face the music. That's the point I've been working my way to. Why I consider him the powerless protagonist done right. He's just a guy. Everyone knows he's just a guy, and he has to live with it. For me, this puts him right up there with Hanamichi Sakuragi from Slam Dunk because they're the type of guys who are real bad at what they're supposed to be good at, but try their hardest to scrape by however they can without ever losing faith in themselves. Now, to make this an unordinary review instead of just a video on John, I have to say that the CG backgrounds are lackluster, the character art is mid at best, and the one redeeming visual quality it has is that the fights are well choreographed for the most part, while still not reaching Demon Slayer status, of course. Besides that, I appreciate how well planned and thought out the story and major reveals of Unordinary are. To make this video, I had to read the story again anew, and it amazed me how glaring the setups were right from the jump. Nothing ever feels forced, and there's always the sense that whatever made it into the comic was always supposed to be there. That's the main thing I ask of a storyteller, that they give us something cohesive and well thought out. Not what the last arc of Tokyo Revengers has been. Considering everything I've said or opted not to for the sake of spoilers, would I recommend you read this? Yes, go now. Wait, I mean after the video. You can start opening it up on something without turning me off just yet. I'll preface this next part by saying, yes, I am a weekly unordinary reader, so I've seen everything. But please don't leave spoilers in the comments for the people who haven't yet, even if you want to disagree with the rating I give Unordinary. That being said, I give it a healthy 84 of 100 marks, 607 approving judges. As always, guys, thanks for watching this video to the end. Comment ordinary down below so I know who the real ones are. If I'm able to stay on top of my work, this should be the first of 7 consecutive days of uploads. Something I haven't done yet before that's sure to be taxing because these videos take a lot of time and effort to prepare. Therefore, if you like what I do, please subscribe to be notified about my future content and consider supporting me over at patreon.com/samyuk607 so I can upload higher quality videos more consistently. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, and comment why down below for the criticism helps me grow. Until next time, guys, this has been Samyuk607, logging out.